Since 2017, the Italian Wine Podcast has exploded, recently hitting 6 million listens. Support us by buying a copy of Italian Wine Unplugged 2.0 or making a small donation. In return, we'll give you the chance to nominate a guest and even win lunch with Stevie Kim and Professor Attilio Scienza. Find out more at italianwinepodcast.com. Chin chin!
Italian Wine Podcast is delighted to present the series of highlights from the 2022 Wine2wine Business Forum, focusing on wine communication and bringing together the most influential speakers in the sectors to discuss the hottest topics facing the wine industry today. Don't forget to tune in every Thursday at 2 p.m. Central European Time or visit wine2wine.net for more information.
Good evening to you all. My name is Francesco Minetti. I am the owner of an agency called Welcome. For 30 years, we have been dealing with wine communication. While I was getting ready for this presentation, there was a question that was haunting me. Here is the question. Why are we still here talking about PR? There has been a digital revolution. You know that much has happened in recent years, yet we still talk about PR. We Italians associate the word relationship with loving someone or making friends or things like that. Well, this is because we are naturally designed or bound to entertain good relationships. It comes natural to us. Today, however, I hope I am useful to you and give you 6 take-away messages on the question of international PR in the wine sector. These are my own opinions, and I will try and validate them with some visual models that help me to open up my horizons. Why relationships and why are they still effective? Well, I'm not going back in history and talk about Aristotle. However, Paul Václavic is a psychologist who 55 years ago wrote an important treatise, which is the Pragmatics of Human Communication. This book is so hard to read. 5 key actions are the ones that we have learned from him. So communication develops on 2 planes, relationship and content. Well, the first classifies the second one. The concept is this human interrelationship includes these 2 items, relationship and content. Relation is more important than content. Here, take a look at the visual scheme. A is a starting point and B is the destination point. What lies in between is a road. The content travels across this road. The road is relationship. Now, we are talking about different routes or roads, depending on whether you are a mega corporation or a smaller company working on a local market. And so in that way, the route is not going to be so straight, but more beautiful to look at. Now, what is my first takeaway? If you don't invest in the relationship, it doesn't make sense to invest in contents. Well, this may sound obvious to you. This is not the case. In the past few years, all of the big gurus have talked about contents. Contents first, content marketing, content is king. So my assumption is that at the moment we have even too much content. We shouldn't struggle for more content. Well, the public is overwhelmed by content. What is missing is relationships. You have to invest on relationship. It doesn't mean that you have to pay in order to establish a relationship. You must be genuinely interested in building a relationship. Why in corporate communication, why do we need relationships? Well, we pursue three goals ultimately. When I started out into this job, I said to myself, how can we arrange all of the available tools? Well, I couldn't understand how such an old-fashioned action like a PR was still so popular. So there are three goals. First of all, control. We want to have a full control of what we do when we say it and decide if to say it or not. Visibility, we want to reach the highest possible number of people. And the third one, which is reputation. So we would like to be talked about spontaneously and in favorable terms. Well, control, reach, and reputation. Well, there are proprietary channels that we know very well. I won't dwell on them. Proprietary contents are the website, sales supports, corporate videos. These are owned. However, they give us very little visibility and very little reputation because this is self-centered. How can we do to take a further step? We have to attract the traffic through web marketing and social media. Social media are not the proprietary channels. They can just help you to bring traffic to your proprietary channels. Well, I'm sure you know that Zuckerman's algorithms change all the time, and the content that was viewed by a given number of people now is visible to fewer people. If you want to be even more visible, well, until 30 years ago, advertising was the answer. You pay a media company that is responsible for making a public loyal through advertising. You have a control because you are the decision maker. You get visibility, but you don't have any reputation. What is to do in order to win a reputation? What I can do is to employ a press agency so that people talk spontaneously about me. I don't pay those who speak highly of me. I'm paying in middlemen that leads me to earned so ratings, awards that we are all striving for, and the word of mouth referrals. Very good. So what do you get here? You lose control because you can't decide the timing, the amounts, and I can't make sure they speak highly of me. So this may be the case. What to do is to be done in order to come full circle. I should take control again of spontaneous reviews and distribute them in my channels. So in between there is marketing. Marketing is the only activity that at the moment can control then put together control and visibility and reputation. This explains why recently we are so interested again, in spite of many doubts. Well, Technically speaking, this is in the evolution of advertorial, with someone that is pledging themselves. So this is the only way to relationship is the only way to increase one's reputation. That's why it is so interesting to talk about relationships. The contexts change, our target population changes. Well, that's the only way that we can use successfully. If you don't understand why reputation is important, I am sharing another visual model with you. The target of any company is to make profits. Well, profitability is something that's measurable. This is the margin. The margin is the result of a mathematical operation, revenues minus costs. That's very basic. We have two ways to increase or to support one's margins. Well, of course, we are not here to maximize profits only. But making profits is essential in order to be sustainable. You can increase revenues or decrease costs. Well, cost minimization is not possible in the long term. It's not sustainable in the longer term. So there have been social harms made by this attempt.
Wine2wine Business Forum. Everything you need to get ahead in the world of wine. Supersize your business network. Share business ideas with the biggest voices in the industry. Join us in Verona on November 13 to 14, 2023. Tickets available now at wine2wine.net.
And this is not technically possible. If you wanted to make premium wine, you have to invest a lot on consultancy, materials analysis. So cost minimization is possible. Revenues is quantity times price. You can expand the volume, of course, but this is not sustainable in the long period because farming is working off scarce assets such as the the expanse of vineyards. I mean, it's so difficult to increase volumes. The only way to go is to sustain prices. You can do that in different ways. As Adam Smith used to say, the price is the monetary value that gravitates around the value. Why? That's so value is a completely subjective variable, and it has to do with our psychological perception. The only option to build a longer term value, since we cannot, like in other industries, file patents or things like that, so the only way for us is to protect a process of intangible value. This is called brand, and brand is inherently based on relationship and confidence. Well, that's all very well, but what has changed in recent years? So the brand is, I call it brand. So I show it as part of two fundamental markets, the product market, the conventional one of microeconomic competitive analysis, and the relationship or reputation market. Let's take a look at the first one. Here we have been exposed to many competitive pressures, such as sector-based competition, increasing number of products, increasing number of brands, cross-sectional competition. There are other sectors that have invested in the wine industry. Many spirit companies have invested in the wine industry because they are using the same sales force. Now they are divesting because they understood it's going to be a failure. However, there are many other sectors that they are diversifying their investments in the wine sector.
So we have multi-sectorial competitors that work on the evolution of the demand. There are those increasing the supply, the other will decrease the demand. They want to have low alcohol, they want to beer, and this somehow partly replaces the word of our product. But then, of course, we have increasing powers in the retail, and we do have geopolitical risks. We have protectionism risks for this sovereignty of the country, and this occurs to protect our industries. Well, that's right, and this happens, for instance, also for the other markets, such as Brazil, that has increased duties so much that has made it impossible to work there. There are for sure certain strategic marketing operations that could be carried out to counterbalance these complexities, but this is not the focus today. But there are many things that can be done, and Italian wineries are doing it. But let's have a look at the complexity of relationships. Well, as a rule, these three things have happened. A decrease of the media of traditional sectors, and on the other side, there is a search for the ethical code and an increase in professional expertise. And once there were an exclusive focus on actually paper press. Let's think about the 80s, the wine colonies, especially of the Italian journals, but also international journals as well. But as a matter of fact, they were actually consuming bulk wines. They consuming wines also from close markets, and to have a winemaking cellar or a packaging facility were indeed were requiring so high investments that there were very few brands that could do it. Those which had a greater distribution. There was a non-differentiated commodity, there was not much diversity, and there was not much need of communication. So the printed press journalists then had others being added because certain denominations become successful in the word, and so we have those being specialized, and then prizes started, and also ratings. But then the digital comes, and these actually upsets the traditional journalism because they bring about a substantial decrease in advertising revenues, so consolidation and concentration of indeed the journals, and then consistent editions, and even great editors from the Anglo-Saxon work, Robert Parker, Edward Johnson, or Falstaff, were taken over. So in a process of consolidation. And what does this mean? It substantially means less and less a person to whom we should not rate what we are and why we are different. So this is a very interesting topic, but we will see this better later on. There's also a third topic which actually has a technological complexity and information overload and increase in the channels. And let's have a look and see a little bit better what I was saying before. If we just look at the industry journals and if we put in a diagram of the demand and supply, we had a certain demand that was matching with a certain supply. So we're talking about the market of reputation. There was a certain amount of reputation that could be bought at a certain price. But the demand increases, as we were saying, because the competition in the industry incredibly increases. So there are 18,000 wineries in Italy as of today. Of course, they do not all work in the reputation market, but 10% at least already is a great number. Then the aggregate supply actually moves, being less elastic but more rational. And this means that we have to spend much more now to get less reputation. There is an excess in demand and an overbalance. Let's think about how many press releases we have to issue, and let's think about how many expenses we have to incur to actually have memorable experiences, and how many times we have to call people to have them here. So this is part of a financial investment in a certain period of time. So this for sure is a sign of a new point of balance. So the fourth takeaway is that public relations should not be just limited to the press as the single target, because the cost-benefit ratio is too high. Probably this could be strange from someone who has a press agency, but this is indeed how it is. Let's have a look at the previous model and let's try to identify another aspect and try to have certain hints or suggestions just to get to the conclusion. So what happens? It happens that indeed the supply of reputation is less and less. When there is a demand, there is also an alternative supply. Not only we have journalists, but we do have master of wine and then sommelier. They start communication, distribution activities through blogs or through education and training courses. Then we have the influencers who cover this gap, and they start offering content, and chefs become also ambassadors, because this is a way to do communication when the press alone was not able to do it. So we absolutely have to consider these new players right now. And above all, and this is indeed the more challenging part of my topic and my presentation, is that we must have, actually view on the past and do a throwback. So when there were just few journalists, what did we do? We were just thinking about selling. PR, the true public relations were conducted with customers on the word and on trade. And probably the big importers and indeed sommelier and restaurant owners contributed to develop brands, at least as a big journalist. And for me, the key is the active and strategic management of distribution. Distribution is the main visibility leverage of distribution, and we can control that. We can do it more often and often, say no. It's very difficult to say no, but we will see that just in a while. What I imagine for the future, and this is something that is being done by the wineries, structured wineries between commercial and communication. So I may think about agents that are indeed allowed to consolidate the brand and not only to increase their revenues. And so thinking about events at restaurants, because that's where I want to consolidate my presence. But quite often the commercials just look for the score, because that's the only argument they have to when they say. And the others, indeed, the communicators do not have any idea about the positioning, and they go after certain KPIs that have nothing to do with distribution. And if you think that the KPIs is the total number of articles, but is it like that? And if the product is not in that country, I mean, what's the purpose of having an article issued in that country? So there is indeed a separation between two corporate functions that should work much more closely. And this was actually proven by a long supply chain. There is less and less control down the road. But I remember that once in a meeting, I said to the company commercial that it would have been interesting, for him to go to the social media and see what we are saying, and that you show this also to the customers in order to provide a consistent message. And he said, you do your job and I do mine, which is, of course, true, and I agree with that. But my point was that in the expertise of commercial people right now, it is necessary to understand communication. It is necessary to think about distribution in a strategic way. It is necessary to understand which are the listings of wine that create opinion, who are the, the opinion leaders and sommeliers, and who influences customers' tastes, and how your products are introduced to the customers, and understanding who are the right customers. And this is important because in this case you have sales arguments in addition to the score and rankings. And I have, a lot of examples of great brands in the wine world that have built a great brand apart from the score. So this is feasible. On the other side, it is very important that in the job description of those in charge of communication, there is also something more within commercial skills. So we have to understand that a brand is at the center of two very complex markets and, of course, vulnerable. So the media visibility without the distribution does not make sense. And when I'm told we need to do positioning, and then I wonder, but what contributes the most to positioning? A listing, wine listing, a good point of sale, great scoring, or then a wine auction, or a host offering your wine every day? Well, of course, it depends on your price point, on your positioning, and on how your offering is structured. But if I'm asked whether good scoring or a good distributor is serving the best restaurants counts more, my answer is clear. That is not the paradox whether the egg or the hen were born first, but first you do right distribution and then you help the distribution, because the positioning is the place, the position you occupy in the world. If you're not there on the shelves, if you are not there in the listings, you might have the entire communication in the world, but you're not going to sell. So, and also someone tells me, but without the score, no commercial partner, no important commercial partner, takes you into consideration. But I have so many opposite examples for that. So the fifth takeaway is that distribution itself is communication. Without a synergic relationship between commercial, marketing, communication, you cannot think about effective PR. So close to the conclusions, if we really wanted to conquer conquer the end consumers, who are very important because after COVID, they are the ones to be conquered. So let's start selling, spending something more, and maybe spending a little bit less in communicating, because this is against my interest. But this is the only sustainable strategy we have, because we have emptied the professional journalistic offering, but we have also saturated the end customers with too much information. So this is the right time to customize this and to be relevant, establishing direct value contacts. So we have just created a small model that is not exhaustive, but there are 2 main points, 3 points that really differentiate you, and they should be 3, no more. But that should really characterize you as a brand dealers. Hopefully, you should find a purpose. And I don't know if you actually heard Kitty Hawk in 5 Whys. So the idea of having a vision and brand that goes beyond, the limited meaning of that word. And then 10 names. 10 people to whom you should, tell your account. So 3 points for which you're different from all the others. 10 people to whom you could tell it. And then you might say, well, many things have happened. Yes, it's true. Indeed, these 10 persons include also digital content creators, sommelier, master wines, and importers, and maybe even Alexa or Siri. Because some people say that they will be the influencers of tomorrow, but this is our PR strategy. Thank you.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.